Good morning, grade 11 students. Today we're going to continue lesson number 3, part 2, about diseases caused by bacteria and viruses. Please make sure to open your books on page 588. The objectives of this section is to identify the way viruses cause a disease and specify emerging diseases that are threatening to human health. Disease mechanism. So viruses can attack and destroy certain cells in the body, causing the symptoms of the associated disease. Viruses can cause a disease by, first, directly destroying the living cell. For example, the polio virus destroys the nervous system and produces paralysis. Second, affecting cellular process in ways that upsets homeostasis and later leading to cancer. How to prevent a viral disease. In most cases, the way to protect from viral diseases lies in prevention by the use of vaccines. For example, infants, children, and young adults undergo a series of vaccines in order to prevent them from attracting viral or even bacterial diseases that they later might encounter in their life. Here are some of the famous viral diseases. Example, the common cold. It causes sneezing, sore throat, fever, headache, and muscle aches. The transmission is by contact with contaminated objects that carry the common cold virus, for example, surfaces, or by inhaling droplets from the air. The influenza virus would have the same effects of the common cold on the body, in addition to dry cough and nasal congestion. The transmission of the flu virus is by spreading in respiratory droplets caused by coughing and sneezing. The third virus is the HIV virus that causes AIDS. What happens is that helper T cells, which are white blood cells, are completely destroyed. The transmission is by sexual contact with contaminated blood or body fluids, and can be passed to babies during delivery or even breastfeeding. Personal hygiene is a very important method in order to prevent viral diseases. Recent studies show that, for example, the cold and flu virus is often transmitted by hand-to-mouth contact. The effective ways to help prevent infection includes frequent hand washing, avoiding contact with sick individuals, coughing and sneezing into a tissue and never into your hand. We have mentioned earlier in the previous part of this section is that bacterial diseases are treated by antibiotics. It's very important to know that viral diseases cannot be treated by antibiotics. Instead, they are treated by antiviral medications. What are emerging diseases? They are unknown diseases that appear in a population, either for the first time or they are well-known disease that suddenly becomes harder to control. Let's take an example. An example of an emerging disease would be SARS, which stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. This SARS is a type of coronavirus that usually affects the lungs. It had a global outbreak that lasted from late 2002 to mid-2003. Now, during this time, over 8,000 people were sickened and about 774 people died. It's important to mention that the origin of SARS are bats. The main reason that this coronavirus spread was due to changes in lifestyle and commerce that made this emerging disease even more of a threat. Change in lifestyle and commerce is meant by high-speed travel, whereby an individual can move halfway around the world in a day. and huge quantities of food and consumer goods are shipped between regions that previously had little contact with each other. This will help human populations that were once isolated by oceans and mountains into close contact. All of this will lead to rapid spread of new diseases. The pathogens that cause emerging diseases are threatening to human health because human populations have little to no resistance to them and because methods of control have yet to be developed. And that is what is basically happening recently with coronavirus, whereby the human body is introduced to an unknown virus that has no resistance for and that cannot be prevented due to the absence of vaccine. What are superbugs? Superbugs are bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. Resistant to antibiotics means that they are not affected by the drug, and they can transfer drug-resistant genes from one bacterium into another through conjugation. We have discussed earlier what conjugation is. It is asexual reproduction that occurs between bacteria. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA, is a dangerous drug-resistant bacteria and is very hard to control. MRSA skin infection can be spread by close contact, sharing towels and athletic gear, can often be spread in hospitals and infect surgical wounds or from patient to another. As we know that viruses replicate or they divide so quickly, their genetic makeup or DNA changes very rapidly, allowing viruses to jump from one host species into another. For example, the virus that causes AIDS moved from non-human primates to humans. Researchers are worried about the flu virus. For example, gene shuffling or gene changes among the different flu viruses infecting wild and domesticated bird populations has led to the emergence of the bird flu, which is a deadly version of the human flu. This flu can be transmitted to humans and is mostly deadly. In the following figure, you can notice how the bird flu virus is spread from the ducks to the chicken and later to humans, whereby the humans mutated or changed the DNA sequence of the virus in order to be able for it to spread among their species. End of section 20.3.